Yesterday we looked at Denver in the early years. Today we are going to compare Denver then and now. How have things changed? I know it's hard because we live in Conifer and some of you don't get down to Denver as often as others. So we're going to use this book to help us, and then I've attached a link to a website to show images of buildings and streets from long ago, over 100 years, to today. And I think you'll notice how they are similar, how they are different. Some things have changed and some things have stayed the same. So I'm going to just read a couple pages to you. It's called Denver Now and Then. What do you think someone who lived in Denver in the early 1900s would think if they came to Denver today? There have been many changes. They might be amazed to see many new and different things. Even though there have been many changes, they would discover that some things are still the same. It is fun to look at pictures taken today and compare them to pictures taken from the same spot in the early 1900s. Look at the pictures of the Capitol building below. The buildings look the same, but there are some changes. Can you see a difference? The street lights and traffic signals would puzzle a visitor from the past. The modern car would also be a surprise. The pictures on the next page show the Capitol building looking south from the Presbyterian Church. The large buildings of today almost block the view of the Capitol. Only a few of the trees are still there. The pictures at the bottom of this page show another view of the Capitol building. In the picture taken in 1909, you see a dirt street with trees along the cement sidewalk. The picture taken in 2001 shows a busy street with tall skyscrapers on one side. You will also notice a new modern building between the El Jebel Temple and Central Presbyterian Church. The trees are all gone to make room for the new buildings. See how many things you can find that have changed in the pictures on the following pages. What has stayed the same? So since you don't have this book, it's hard for you to do this activity with me, but I'm just going to show you, like this is the state capitol, and you can see from different perspectives. The building's still the same, right? There might be fewer trees than there were before. And I know sometimes when I've done this activity in the past, some kids say, well, back then it was black and white, and today it's in color. That's not true. It was colorful then. It's just we didn't have colored film. So when our pictures were taken, it came out black and white. But things weren't black and white. They still had color. I like this picture down here from the Capitol grounds looking north. You can see the steeple of the first, it's right here, the First Presbyterian Church. But in this picture, look, you just see trees, right? And you have some power lines. But in this picture, look at the skyscrapers now of today. And a lot of those trees are not there anymore. One other thing I wanted to share with you, since you'll get to look at pictures like this on the website, I want to show you some transportation from early Denver. This is really kind of cool. You see the horse-drawn wagons, stagecoaches, carriages, and even horse-drawn buses or cabs. They were often seen along the streets of early Denver. And then the Union Pacific Railroad went through Cheyenne, Wyoming. The people of Denver laid tracks from Denver to Cheyenne. The railroad made a big difference to Denver. Without the railroad, Denver would not have become the big city it is today. So Union Station is a fun building to go into if you get a chance to go downtown Denver. And the light rail actually can take you there. It's now a hotel with a lot of nice shops and restaurants. And here's the horse-drawn carriage. I thought some of these bicycles were kind of fun to look at. This is what a motorcycle looked like in 1920. What a difference, huh? Looks like a bike. And then here's some of the early automobiles. This was in the 1900s. Can you imagine? Didn't even have doors. This one did, but boy, the snowstorms made that difficult to drive. And then, of course, today, this is what we have. We have the light rail, we have vehicles, Our motorcycles look like this now. These are our bicycles. We have cabs. They still do have the horse-drawn carriage. That's for a lot of tourists use that, and buses, and then of course our airport. So transportation has changed just as the buildings in Denver have changed in the past 100 years. So what we're going to do to compare and contrast, I'd like you to get a piece of paper and a pencil, and we're going to draw a Venn diagram. Most of you have done this. You just need to draw two big circles, and they don't have to be perfect. You want them to overlap, and this will be Denver then versus Denver now. And these, of course, are your differences, the ones on the sides. These are differences. And then here would be your similarities. How some things are still the same. You'd be surprised how many of those old buildings are still there, but they're just used for something else, more retail now, or apartments or hotels or restaurants versus what their original use might have been. Some of them were firehouses, some of them were old grocery stores and so forth. So some of the things we may have noticed, and like I said, you're going to be looking at images online, but some things we noticed that there were more trees back then. There's less trees now, right? They both have buildings. It's a similarity. They're still buildings. Back then there were buildings, but now they're skyscrapers. Back then there were no skyscrapers. Now the light rail runs through Denver. Back then there were horse-drawn carriages or wagons. We still have some of those though for the tourists, right? They both have bikes. I know you can rent bikes in downtown Denver. The bikes, they look a little different, but they did have bikes back then. All the street lights, they didn't have back then, but they do now, and so forth. So those are just some ideas of what you might notice as you look at the images. Just looking at the buildings too, back then they used a lot of brick. You don't see that as much, right, in your skyscrapers. The skyscrapers aren't made out of brick. So look for those things as you click on the website. Make your Venn diagram as you're looking, and please take a picture of your Venn diagram and upload it to this assignment.